Hello, how you doing? So I'm going to use this phrase today, which is a bit bro marketing. It's a bit Americanized, but I actually really love it because I love visuals and it really helps me see it. The phrase is moving the needle. And I am naturally, just with myself, I'm great in a post office queue, mainly okay with my children, but I'm really impatient. And sometimes I want to go from 0 to 100 and just get the thing done. And I've really had to learn patience over the years because actually being in that state of like, but I just want it right now, doesn't help me get there any quicker. So moving the needle allows me to think about those incremental steps that I need to take in order to move me along. Because sometimes there are days where you're not going to have the most incredible moment where things are not just going to like spark and happen. Sometimes you're in that grind of day-to-day life. I want to talk about this in terms of your future self. Because I don't know about you, but I woke up. I grew up with a lot of 90s makeover shows or like not only in people's houses, you know, the 60-minute makeover, but also people's physical makeovers on something like This Morning, where they'd go, right, we're just going to go for a quick break. Charles Worthington is going to chop, and she's got a choppy bob, and suddenly this has happened all in the last 12 minutes. So yes, it's really interesting with our future self because sometimes it takes a very short amount of time and sometimes it's over the course of several years, maybe several decades. And I want to give you things that really keep you in the game, keep you in the trust, keep you in the momentum, rather in that stage of Veruca Salt of like, it's not happening and I just want it now. That version of you does not help you move forward. Here we go. Number 1, I want you to tighten up your language, meaning we can all say things subconsciously, off the cuff. They're just part of our vernacular that we don't even consider. I'm not great at that. Oh, I always do that. Or I'm this, this, and this. And so often I see people throwing away opportunities, throwing away possibilities because they're stuck in their normal rhythms. They're not being aware. For example, I've seen so many people in an acting waiting room waiting for the job that they're going to audition for that potentially could change their life. They are sitting in that waiting room talking about how they haven't worked for a while, how they've not been feeling great, how the industry is not what it was, how whatever. You've heard them in your situation. And I just always think, shall I tell you what I honestly think? Shut up! Don't say it, even if you feel it. And I think sometimes, and this maybe sounds very old school, there are some moments where those conversations need to be in the privacy of your own home, your family, and your friends, not in this working professional environment. Not if you want the thing. You are there for that 10-minute audition or whatever it was to be great, to show what you can do, to show your skill set. People might pass the time of day with you and go, how was your journey here? But they don't really want to know. They just want to warm you up and make friends with you and for you to do a great job. I want you to tighten up your language. Really notice what you're saying. Really pay attention to it. And ask yourself if it's true or false. Or is this the most interesting thing about me? Is this helping me to move the needle? If it's not, reframe it, change it, redesign it, and move on. Number 2. Big picture and small picture. I love this balancing act between both. In the day-to-day of my life, I really try and remain present. My kids are great for that because they're not 7 years ahead. They're here. What are we having for dinner? What are we doing next? Have you seen my football boots? What time are we leaving? Can you sign this form for tomorrow? that day-to-day life. And so I really make sure that when I'm looking at my work and the things that I'm moving forward in my own goals, I'm noticing all of those things. So I write them down. Things like, if my son or my daughter says something, I give myself that moment. I will of like, oh, that was a really good parenting moment. I'm not saying I have those every single day, but when they come, I acknowledge them. When something happens in my business, I love it. I note it, I check it, and I really fully embrace it. And that's what we have to do in the day-to-day. Equally, I spend a lot of time visualizing the future, and I do that via movement. Running works really well for me, walks on Hampstead Heath. Sometimes I'll lie on my living room floor, I'll do a meditation, I'll do a visualization exercise. I connect with those two things. I also sit and look at my goals on a regular basis. So I make that decision to move the needle in both parts of my brain. Number 3, noticing the gaps, tightening things up. If you want growth, if you want movement, you have to be aware of what is slowing that down. And this could be the introduction of systems, of recognizing things that you're doing all of the time with no rhyme or reason. And I also believe that you can't do everything all at the same time. And so things that can become automatic in your head, one example, I want my kids to have really good food. It's something I spend money on. I also have noticed it in myself when I eat well, and I don't have junk. That's when I feel fresh and sharp and all the rest of it. And when I'm looking at something and seeing 30 ingredients that I don't recognize, I'm just always like, I don't want that to be the basis of my kids' diet. Anyway, it's a personal preference. I'm just using this as an example. And in order to do that and not just go, yeah, I'll just buy a couple of microwave meals, I have to plan in advance. And what I was finding was it just became a big decision thing every single night. Oh my God, what am I going to cook for dinner? What am I going to make tonight? And now I shop much more wisely because that allows me to move the needle. I actually don't want to be in the supermarket for hours on end. I want to be enjoying the food, prepping the food, but also doing all the other things in my life. You might be having and experiencing points in your own business or your life where every time it feels like a big effort. Every time you're spending half an hour looking for these things. I want you to notice those gaps in your business where you're maybe giving way too much headspace, way too much time and thought and effort, when actually you need to take half an hour and go, why is this not working? Or I remember this moment in our old house when my son went to nursery and I had a baby at home, and getting him to nursery, even though it was like 2 streets away, I just thought, oh gosh, I've got to be organized because I want him there. I want him settled. And so we bought a thing for the front door where everybody had a little cubby hole and he could get, even at, 2.5, 3, he could get his shoes out. He could put his little bag together. And that just became part of it. Rather than every single day going, where's the thing? What's happening? Again, I did it with my daughter's room over the summer holidays. I took a whole day. I organized the whole thing. And I'm delighted that even though we're in October, it's still pretty organized, which shows that the system works. Wow, I sound boring. But maybe you can relate. Maybe you're a busy person. Maybe you are always required, somebody or something needs you at all times. So if you still want to build that ambition, you want to build that growth, you have to be organized. There's no 2 ways around it, and you have to make time for yourself and for the project. Number 4, I want you to notice the changes. It's so easy to be on to the next thing. And this really irritates me when I see this happening, when you have a really great weekend away or you have a lovely dinner And before you've even said bye, people are like, so, like, we need to do this again. Let's book it in the diary. Let's do this now. And it's like, I get it. But also, can't we just be in this moment of, wasn't this great? I want you to begin to notice these ripples, these points of growth, these sprints that you're already having. Instead of thinking about all the things that are left to do and how you haven't moved the needle, I want you to keep reflecting and going, I did that. That happened. I survived that. Wow, that was tough. I met it. I came out the other side. Please acknowledge all of your things that you have accomplished along the way. That version of you 5 years ago might have been thinking about you now. And I know it's sexier and I know it's more fun to keep dreaming and on to the next thing and what are we doing? But I also want you to really acknowledge where you've moved the needle previously. Number 5, I want you to get quicker at making decisions. This could be 1% quicker. I heard Stephen Bartlett talk about this, and he got it from Obama that he would make a decision if he was 51% sure. And that messed with my mind a little bit because I was thinking, what, only 51%? Only 51% sure as the president of America. You're making decisions if you're only 51% sure. Having said that, though, it meant he made a decision rather than sitting on the fence, rather than being like, I just don't know. I don't know what to do. So often it can, we can sit in delay. We can sit in overwhelm. One of the things that Matt and I do with each other is wherever possible, we try and share early. And I do it with my mum and my stepdad and like all of this that I have to, I try and get ahead of the curve. This is what this week's looking like. I know it's 3 Tuesdays away from now, but could I pencil you for childcare just in case I'm late back on this day? That way, people can organize their life. People can do these things. And this is the same when you're going through a growth change. Planning things in right now, getting ahead rather than getting to the day and be like, I need to make a decision about this, or I'll get to that later. The temptation can be to sit in that insecurity, in that indecision. So a couple of things. Share early. Give yourself wiggle room. If you think something is going to take a day to complete and it's got a deadline, give the deadline as 3 days from now, just in case. You might deliver it in a day. It might be done. It might be early. They will be delighted. Great. But give yourself that wiggle room. You're much more likely to get a greater result rather than when you're crammed in. Eliminate anything that is not getting you closer. Now, there needs to be a caveat with this because sometimes, people might be like, well, actually, this person in my life is quite negative about my goals, or they don't really see me for who I am, and I can't really, shut them out of my life. No problem. So if that is the case, just be deliberate as to when you turn down the noise. Meaning, if you have a day where you have to be like the best version, those days where you're thinking, I've got to deliver today, I've got to go into that meeting, I've got a pitch, I've got a discovery call, I've got a day of filming, whatever it might be, and you know that you want to be your very best, don't phone that toxic person on the way to see how they are. It's going to drain your energy. It's going to keep the needle still. It's going to make you go into that self-doubt thing of like, can I do this? Can I do this? Because it's going to take you into that energy. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to keep it moving, keep the momentum, keep the flow. And so, yes, that toxic person in your life, they might be quite fundamental in terms of your family, and you want to see how they are. Do it at certain times. This is really about being deliberate in your life. There's another thing that comes up as one final point in this world of manifestation is that people say, well, I've asked the universe and now we wait. Now I surrender. And that's great, but the surrender is not like, oh, I'll just forget about it and not do anything about it. It's not about being in a like a pushing, hi, I really want this, but it's about being discerning and deliberate about how you operate. I hope you've got lots from today. Sending you lots and lots of love. Let me know how you get on. Please subscribe, please follow along, and I'll see you next time. Bye.